Nick Wright, co-host First Things First. By the way, very interesting. I watched Hard Knocks last night, and that coaching meeting, I got Haley's ego. Greg Williams got a major ego defensive coordinator. I've always supported Hugh Jackson because I think he's a good dude and he knows offense. But you know, there are those that call him Hubris Jackson. You actually were in Kansas City with Todd Haley. That coaching room to me felt combustible. Your opinion?
Well, I think they brought in Greg Williams and they brought in Todd Haley this offseason for a reason, to add some toughness. And Todd Haley is a brilliant offensive mind if you can get along with him. I just thought it was an interesting room for Hugh to be essentially big boying, saying, I've sat in your seat, but I'm now sitting in this seat. When he's saying it to two guys in Greg Williams and Todd Haley who have both sat in Hugh's seat.
Yes.
And by a record perspective, we're more successful in that seat, and I can say that without knowing Greg Williams or Todd Haley's record off the top of my head, because every coach in NFL history who has sat in that seat has been more successful than Hugh.
Yeah.
And I haven't talked to Todd. I'm not assigning this Todd, but I'm watching it in my head thinking, I wonder if Todd Haley's thinking, well, let's see who's sitting in that seat around week 7. Because I mean, if something does happen and they don't get off to a good start and 1-31 turns into 1-37, the Browns, you wouldn't be shocked to make a coaching change. I don't know that you can make Greg Williams the interim coach given his history with the NFL and Todd Haley's there. One other point on this that I think is noteworthy. I understand Hugh Jackson's point that we are trying to take preventative measures. But the Browns haven't lost 31 games in the last 2 seasons due to injury. They've lost 31 games last 2 seasons because they've been terrible. And so I think Greg Williams and Todd Haley and the running backs coach and the other guys in the room maybe have a point. Like, even if we are a little banged up, if we get tougher, if we get better, it will be good for us. So I understood the frustration there.
By the way, you were talking about this thing on First Things First. The Dallas Cowboys, if you go to a hotel room, in the bathroom they have a vanity mirror, and it makes a slight imperfection on your face look like a Civil War scar. Do not take the vanity mirror as truth. The Dallas Cowboys play on Monday night by themselves, Thursday night by themselves, Sunday night by themselves. And so we are overly harsh on the Cowboys. I like their team a lot. The Jaguars, conversely, we saw play twice against the Steelers. We think they're great. I like Dallas this year. I do wonder about the loss of Jason Witten, who was a 15-year security blanket for a young quarterback. That really concerns me. But what do you make of the latest story that these receivers are awful? Cole Beasley said yesterday, we're going to shock the world. Are we overstating their wide receiver plight, or what's your take on it?
All right, so on the Cowboys side, before we do anything on the Jaguars, listen, sometimes things are awesome, yet they are still overrated. So I'll go third rail here. How about the Beatles? The Beatles are awesome, yet they're still overrated because they're considered the greatest musical group of all time. Oh, Colin, I know. For shame, for shame. Sometimes things aren't very good, yet they're still underrated. I'll say Andy Dalton. He's not very good, but we talk about him like he's terrible. Sometimes things, however, are properly rated. That is the Cowboys receiving group. The reason they are considered a bottom 5 group in the league is because we keep hearing from Cole Beasley. On what other team would Cole Beasley have a speaking role? What other team would he be like, hey, 5'8" guy who had 300 yards last year, give me your takes on what's coming, except it's like, who else are we going to talk to? The running back, wide receiver, kick returner they brought in from Los Angeles? What about the entire tight ends room that has less than 100 career yards? No. The Cowboys, A-plus offensive line, A-plus running game. I think slightly underrated defense. But their passing attack right now appears to be dreadful, at least from a pass catcher standpoint, which puts a lot on the shoulders of Dak Prescott, who obviously was amazing his rookie year, not so amazing year 2.
Well, I am a Dak fan because I like his leadership qualities, and I think every time they put a mic in front of him, he says smart stuff. And by the way, I ran into Kevin Sumlin about a week ago, who admitted to me that he whiffed on Dak Prescott. It's the biggest mistake he's ever made in recruiting, and I asked him why. He said, you know what? I just didn't realize how smart he was. And football at that position, every time you talk, every snap, every audible. I want to segue into a quarterback, though, that I have been tough on, Cam Newton. Pro Football Focus today released an analytics poll on him and ranked him 17th. Now, I rank him 12th. 2 weeks ago, NFL executives and scouts ranked him 11th. I think that's reasonable. I've been tough on him. I think and I believe this to be true, Nick, if I took your 20-year career, I would take out your best year and your worst year. The remaining 18, you are what you regularly exhibit. And I would say you're very good. Maybe you had a bad year, you had a bad boss. Maybe you had a great year, you had a perfect boss. Cam Newton, you take out his MVP season. Here's what he is. 21-14 touchdown to interception ratio. Passer rating at 84. 59% completions. 3,500 yards throwing. Am I wrong? Am I negative?
No. Listen, the Cam Newton, when you evaluate him by those numbers alone, is a slightly above average passer or a slightly above average quarterback. But we have to stop with Cam Newton acting like the rushing doesn't count. Like, yeah, he scored the most rushing touchdowns of any, not quarterback, player in football since he came into the league. He has the highest yards per carry since he came into the league. He's top 12 in rushing yards, not amongst quarterbacks, amongst players since he came into the league. Let's throw all that out. He's the most effective and prolific rushing quarterback ever. So when you are an A+ at, let's just say that for most quarterbacks, 5% of the game, but for Cam, it's 15% of the game. And you're a B- in the other part. That's how you, in my eyes, get closer to the 7, 8, 9 quarterback in football than 10, 11, 12, and certainly higher than 17.
Yes.
Like, you have to give Cam credit for the rushing stuff. And I'm not saying you're not, but like that is a part of it. Now, I will also say this. The last playoff game Cam Newton won was the NFC Championship game in 2015. In 2016, he was downright bad. In 2017, he wasn't good statistically. However, he had some unbelievable games, and the team won a lot, and he was great in that playoff game that they lost. This is year 8. This is a very big year for Cam Newton. Cam Newton's the number 1 overall pick, the greatest single season of college football I've ever seen, a guy who went 15-1, won the MVP, and could have won a Super Bowl. It is important that Cam has more great games than terrible games this year as opposed to the ratio last year. If Cam is going to get back in the conversation as one of the 4 or 5 best quarterbacks in football, he needs to be better this year. And if you've been watching things in Carolina, they already lost their right tackle. Norwell left in free agency. They've now lost 2 interior offensive linemen to injury already in camp. A lot's going to be on his shoulders. I believe in talent, and I think Norv Turner will help him a lot. I don't think listen, you're certainly not as wrong on Cam as you are about Westbrook, if that makes you feel better.
Nick Wright, who, by the way, is sporting a wonderful tan. You look at you. He just looked I spent a
little bit of time out of the country. Yeah, thank you.
Good seeing you, buddy. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.